My husband secretly adopted his ex's baby, and tried to make me believe it was ours. The day I found the photo in the nursery, I realized my entire marriage was built on a lie. I walked into the nursery with a basket of freshly folded baby clothes, tiny onesies, pastel socks, the kind of laundry that usually fills a home with warmth. But the second I stepped across the threshold, something felt off. The air was too still. Too quiet. Too staged. Then I saw it. The baby, a baby, sleeping in the crib we bought months ago, just to be prepared for the future. Except this blanket wasn't ours. The pattern, the stitching, everything about it felt foreign in a room I personally designed. My stomach tightened, but when my eyes shifted to the dresser, the world tilted completely. A photo. Face down, almost carelessly. But a corner peeked out. I picked it up, and life as I knew it split open. There was Ethan, my husband, holding a newborn in a hospital room. His smile wasn't the kind he gave strangers. It was intimate. Familiar. The smile he used to give me when he thought I was his whole world. But next to him was a woman. Tired but glowing in that new mother way. Her body leaned toward him as if they were connected by something deeper than friendship. They looked like a couple. A family. A beginning I was never part of. The blood rushed out of my face so fast I felt dizzy. My hands trembled so violently I nearly dropped the picture. All I could hear was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, drowning out every logical thought. In that moment, everything inside me cracked, quietly, deeply, permanently. My name is Sienna. And that was the first day I realized my marriage had secrets breathing inside it. Dinner that night tasted like cardboard. I pushed rice around my plate while Ethan chatted about work as if nothing in our home was twisted and wrong. Every time he looked at the baby, I watched something soften in him, something I'd never seen during our own years of trying to start a family. He held the baby with a natural ease. His hand cupped the tiny head like he'd done it 1,000 times. The familiarity made bile rise in my throat. I excused myself and pretended to be searching for something in the hallway. That's when I heard it, his voice, low and sharp, coming from his office. No, she doesn't suspect anything. Relax. She thinks it's ours. I froze. The sentence sliced straight through my spine. She thinks it's ours. My legs nearly gave out. He was talking about me. Talking about lying to me. And worse, he sounded proud. Confident. Like deceiving his wife was some strategic achievement. He hung up the call, and I barely made it back to the dining table before he returned. I forced a smile so tight my cheeks hurt. The baby cooed, and Ethan looked down at him like he was the center of his universe. It was then I realized something horrifying. Ethan didn't slip into this lie. He constructed it. Brick by brick. Behind my back. And I, his wife, was the last person meant to know the truth. That night I didn't sleep. I curled up on the nursery floor with the photo clutched in my hands like evidence in a crime scene. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the woman's tired smile, the newborn's tiny fist, and Ethan's arm around them like they were a picture-perfect family. Around 3 a.m., I stood up and opened drawers that had been closed for months. Inside were baby supplies I didn't buy, extra blankets, bottles, a pacifier with a name I didn't recognize printed on the clip. He hadn't just brought home a baby. He brought home someone else's baby, with someone else's history attached. By 5 a.m. I had a notebook open, scribbling questions in shaky handwriting. Who is the woman? Why is Ethan in the hospital with her? When did this happen? Why wasn't I told anything? Whose baby is this really? Each question bled into the next, turning into a long, frantic list. At sunrise, I stared at the glowing nursery walls, suddenly realizing this room wasn't prepared for our future. It was prepared for a secret he hoped would never catch up to him. The lies weren't accidental. They had dates, patterns, coordination. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a deception with architecture. I confronted Ethan the moment he came back from his morning run. Sweat dripped down his temples, and he looked genuinely confused when he saw me waiting in the garage doorway. "I found the photo," I said, my voice steady despite my trembling hands. His face froze, just for a moment. A fraction of a second. But I saw it. Pure, unfiltered panic. Then he smoothed it over with a casual smile. "Oh, that? It's nothing, seen. Some paperwork mix-up with the adoption agency." "Paperwork mix-up?" He said it like we were discussing a late Amazon delivery. He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. The rejection made his jaw clench. "You're overthinking," he added, sharper this time. "Don't go creating drama." "Drama?" I had a hospital photo of my husband holding another woman's newborn, and I was creating drama? His lie didn't have cracks. It had craters. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. Ethan didn't respect me enough to create a believable lie. He thought denial alone was enough to control me. I drove to the hospital listed on the back of the photo, barely remembering traffic lights or turns. My hand shook as I approached the records desk. "I'm looking for information on a family birth," I said, pretending to be a distant relative helping with paperwork. The clerk typed in the date. Her eyebrows lifted. She printed a packet without question. I stepped into the hallway and opened it. The first page. Birth certificate. The mother's name, the same woman from the photo. No father listed. Second page. Temporary release of custody. Signed during a moment of crisis. Third page. Adoption filing. Submitted 2 weeks later. Fourth page. Adoption approval letter. And there. At the bottom. Ethan's signature. Not shaky. Not hesitant. Bold. Clear. Confident. He had adopted this baby alone, behind my back, while married to me. My vision blurred. I leaned against the wall to steady myself. There were dates. Timestamps. Legal stamps. Everything documented in cold, official ink. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. This wasn't kindness. This wasn't charity. This was a secret life event executed with precision and silence. I folded the papers back into the envelope and walked out with a new truth lodged inside me. My husband didn't just lie. He built an entire life chapter without me. And then tried to hand me the final draft as if I'd helped write it. Finding the woman from the photo wasn't difficult. People leave digital footprints everywhere, old social media posts, tagged photos, blurry videos from birthday parties. She lived only 20 minutes from me, which somehow made the betrayal feel even sharper, as if Ethan's secret wasn't just emotional, it was geographical, practically next door. I parked across from a small community playground where her check-ins suggested she often went. A few minutes later, she appeared, pushing a toddler on the swing. The child laughed, carefree, innocent. His eyes sparkled in a way I recognized immediately. The baby living in my house shared those same eyes. But the woman, she wasn't what I expected. She didn't look manipulative or calculating. She looked tired. Soft around the edges. Like someone who had weathered storms alone. Her phone rang. She answered. Her voice cracked as she said, "I can't keep doing this, Ethan. It's too much." I felt my blood run cold. She hung up quickly, wiping her face like she wanted to erase the moment. The toddler called Mama, and she forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Standing there, hidden behind the safety of my car window, I felt two things at once. Rage. And something unexpected. Pity. She wasn't the villain. She was another piece of Ethan's architecture of lies. It dawned on me that the true betrayal wasn't hers. It was his manipulation of both of us. We were merely two chapters in a story he thought he could control. When I finally gathered the courage to call my sister, my voice shook so badly I barely recognized it. She arrived within 30 minutes, messy bun, slippers, no makeup, because sisters don't need notice to show up for emergencies. I handed her the photo first. Then the hospital papers. Then the adoption documents. Her face shifted with every page, confusion, shock, anger, protective fury. By the time she finished, her jaw was clenched so tight the muscle twitched. "Sienna, this wasn't a mistake," she said quietly. "He planned this. He planned all of it." Hearing someone else say the words made the truth heavier. More real. More suffocating. "I feel stupid," I whispered. "How could I not see it?" She grabbed my hands. "No. You didn't deceive anyone. You didn't hide a child. Don't turn his betrayal into your shame." Her certainty steadied something inside me, like a beam supporting a cracked foundation. Then she added, "You need to handle this smart. Not emotional. Smart." Her words were a spark. A shift. The beginning of a strategy. Because until then, I had only felt pain. Now, I felt focus. The next family event was Ethan's nephew's birthday party. Perfect timing. Perfect stage. I wore a calm smile and played the role of doting wife, but inside I was scanning faces, watching reactions, observing whispers, tracking who looked guilty. During a casual conversation with Ethan's aunt and cousin, I dropped a simple line. "I've been learning about adoption paperwork lately. It's surprisingly complicated, isn't it?" I said it lightly. Like a harmless comment. Their reactions were anything but harmless. His aunt froze mid-sip, her wineglass hovering near her lips. His cousin blinked rapidly, eyes darting to Ethan across the room. Then the aunt cleared her throat a little too loudly and said, "Oh, well. I'm sure everything will sort itself out." Sort itself out? What exactly needed sorting? Later, while helping in the kitchen, I overheard the aunt whisper sharply into her phone. "No, she brought it up. I don't think she knows everything yet." "Yes, he said he handled it. He handled it." The same words from the phone call that night. The family wasn't surprised. They were nervous. Nervous that the truth was finally reaching the person it should have reached first. His wife. That was when it clicked. This wasn't Ethan's secret alone. This was a family-protected lie. And I wasn't just fighting betrayal. I was going up against a wall of enablers. I realized something important. Emotion wouldn't win this. Proof would. So I reached out to a friend who owned a small creative agency and asked a favor. She connected me with a private investigator who specialized in domestic cases. When the PI slid the manila folder across the table a week later, I felt my hands go numb before I even opened it. Inside was a timeline of my husband's deceit. Meetings with a private adoption lawyer. Payments to a small agency. Visits to the hospital. Bank transfers labeled as consultation fees. Text messages between him and the woman, screenshotted, timestamped, archived. A surveillance photo of Ethan holding the baby in a park, long before the child appeared in our home. He didn't stumble into this. He navigated it with the precision of someone building a double life. Then I reached the last page. A printed email from Ethan to the adoption coordinator. It read, "My wife is emotionally fragile. I will handle the transition alone." Emotionally fragile? I slammed the folder shut. Not out of anger. Out of disbelief. He weaponized my silence, my trust, my calm nature, used them as excuses to exclude me. The PI looked at me with gentle concern. "Do you have a lawyer?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "But I will. Because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was documented manipulation. And documents are things courts pay attention to." I waited for Ethan to come home. The quiet before he arrived felt like the calm before a controlled explosion. When he stepped inside, sweaty from work and loosening his tie, he froze at the sight of the coffee table. I had arranged everything neatly. The hospital documents. The adoption filings. The PI photos. The email printouts. The birth certificate. He looked at the table. Then at me. Then back at the table. His face drained of color. What is all this?" he whispered. "You tell me," I replied. He opened the folder, hands trembling slightly. Every time he reached a new page, his breathing hitched just a little more. When he finished, he sank into the couch like the truth had weight. Then came the excuses. Ugly, desperate, flimsy excuses. I was helping her. She was struggling. "I didn't want to stress you. You overthink things. I knew you'd react badly. This isn't a big deal. It was temporary. It wasn't supposed to go this far." Every sentence contradicted the last. His voice grew frantic, strained, cornered. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was cold. Detached. Watching him the way a prosecutor watches a witness, waiting for the next inconsistency. Finally, he said the worst line of all. "I thought you'd thank me one day." Thank him? For lying to me? For stealing a child's truth? For replacing honesty with a facade? He didn't understand yet. But his life was about to split into before and after this moment. And I wasn't going to save him from it. Ethan begged me to talk to her, the woman from the photo. He acted like it would magically fix everything, as if one conversation could erase the fact that he adopted a whole human being behind my back. I agreed. Not for him. But for answers. We met at a small cafe tucked between a pharmacy and a flower shop. She arrived 10 minutes early, sitting alone at a corner table, hands wrapped tightly around a cup she hadn't sipped. Her eyes darted up when I approached, and I saw fear, not the guilty kind, but the kind people wear when they've been hurt too often. "I'm Sienna," I said softly. Her shoulders fell as if she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "I'm Ava," she whispered. Ava looked like she carried years of exhaustion layered under her skin. She apologized before I even sat down. "I didn't know you were left out," she said. "I swear, I thought he told you everything. He said you wanted space, that you were fragile, that including you would make things worse." My chest tightened so painfully I had to inhale slowly to keep from crying. Fragile. He used that word again. As if I were some delicate porcelain doll he needed to shield from the truth. Ava explained the rest. She got pregnant at a terrible time. She panicked. Signed temporary custody over. Ethan stepped in to help, promising he was doing it for the baby's stability. She believed him because she needed to believe someone cared. When she realized he never involved me, she tried to back out, but by then, the paperwork was done. He assured her I knew. We sat there, two women who should have been strangers, now bound by a single man's lie. By the time we stood to leave, one truth settled deep inside me. The betrayal wasn't just against me. It was against her, too. And the child. Later that night, when the house was dark and Ethan pretended to sleep on the couch, I stood in the nursery doorway again. The baby stirred, letting out a soft whimper, and instinctively, I stepped inside. He wasn't mine. But he was here, in a world he never chose, tangled in lies he didn't create. When I lifted him, he rested his tiny head on my shoulder like he trusted me. It broke something soft inside me, not out of maternal instinct, but out of pure humanity. I traced the little curls on his head and whispered. You deserved better than this mess. All of us did. He giggled at the sound of my voice. A pure, innocent sound in the middle of so much deception. In that moment, I made a decision. My revenge would never hurt this child. Ethan deserved consequences, not the baby. This wasn't about tearing a family apart. It was about exposing a lie that was already poisoning everyone involved. If anything, I would protect the baby more fiercely than Ethan had, because honesty is a better parent than secrecy. I placed him gently back in the crib and watched him fall asleep with the unbothered peace only children possess. And I walked out knowing. When I fight, and I will fight. I'm fighting for him, too. The next morning, while Ethan acted like our confrontation never happened, I drove to a family law attorney recommended by my sister. Her office was small but intimidating, floor-to-ceiling shelves of neatly labeled files, degrees framed with crisp precision, and a desk that looked like it had witnessed thousands of life-changing conversations. She listened to me quietly. No interruptions. No judgments. Just notes. When I finished, she leaned back and said, "Sienna, what your husband did wasn't just unethical. It may be legally actionable." The air thickened. She laid out my options with surgical clarity. I could demand full access to all adoption documents. I could pursue mediation. I could potentially challenge the adoption if fraud was involved. I could protect myself financially before filing anything. And, if necessary, I could expose the deception in court. She emphasized a phrase repeatedly. Document everything. I pulled out the PI folder. Her eyebrows lifted, impressed. This, she said, tapping the pages, isn't suspicion. This is proof. For the first time, I felt something powerful rise inside me, not anger, not panic, but control. She ended the consultation with a sentence that rewrote my entire perspective. "You're not destroying your family, Sienna. Your husband already did that when he took away your right to the truth." I left with a folder full of legal steps and a new clarity in my chest. My next moves would be deliberate, measured, and unstoppable. The downfall of a lie doesn't always start with confrontation. Sometimes it begins with a single careless photo. It appeared on the neighborhood WhatsApp group. A picture of Ethan at a Saturday soccer match, holding the baby proudly against his chest. The caption read, "New dad energy, grinning face with sweat, look at Ethan." Within minutes, the comments flooded in. "Wait, I thought they didn't have kids. Is that theirs? Congrats? Why didn't Sienna post anything?" I wasn't even in that group. A neighbor forwarded it with a message. "Girl, what is going on?" My phone buzzed nonstop. Curious acquaintances. Nosy neighbors. People who loved gossip more than facts. Ethan tried to brush it off. "It's normal. People speculate. Ignore them." Ignore them? He had publicly paraded a baby he legally adopted without informing his wife, and I was supposed to shrug? But here's the irony. He wanted secrecy. His actions triggered chatter. Chatter triggered rumors. Rumors triggered curiosity. Curiosity triggered digging. By Sunday, people were quietly DMing me, asking if everything was okay, offering subtle hints, and trying to connect the dots. And the more they speculated, the more the story slipped out of Ethan's control. A lie isn't sustainable when the public becomes interested. Secrets rot faster when aired indirectly. Watching it unfold, I felt strange serenity. I didn't need to expose him. The community was already shining a light on cracks he desperately tried to plaster over. Ethan wasn't losing his reputation because of me. He was losing it because lies don't thrive under scrutiny. We attended a dinner party hosted by one of Ethan's coworkers, a sophisticated event with wine glasses clinking and soft jazz playing in the background. I almost didn't go, but something told me this night would matter. Halfway through dessert, the conversation shifted to children. Couples shared baby stories and school dramas. Someone joked, "Ethan, you've been glowing lately. New dad vibes?" People laughed. Ethan forced a stiff smile. Then the coworker, slightly tipsy, overly honest, said loudly, "So, whose baby is it really?" The room fell silent so quickly it felt like a vacuum sucked the sound out. My heart hammered, but my voice stayed calm. Before Ethan could speak, I answered. "I actually wasn't informed about the adoption." You could have heard a pin drop on the marble floor. Forks froze midair. Eyes widened. Glances bounced between me and Ethan like a rally in a silent tennis match. Ethan shot me a warning glare, the kind meant to intimidate me into silence. But I wasn't silenced. Not anymore. I found out by accident, I continued, sipping my wine. I'm still processing everything. He muttered, Sienna, can we not? No, I said, setting my glass down gently. We can. The host cleared his throat awkwardly. Other guests suddenly became fascinated with their plates. Ethan tried to spin the situation, mumbling about miscommunication and bad timing, but the room wasn't convinced. People exchanged looks, the kind that say something is very wrong here. When we left the party, Ethan hissed under his breath. What the hell was that? That, I said calmly, was the truth. And from the tension in his jaw, I knew something. This was the moment he realized he no longer controlled the narrative. After the dinner party, Ethan changed. Not slowly, instantly. Like a switch had flipped. Gone was the calm, calculated liar who thought he controlled everything. In his place was a frantic, defensive man terrified of losing his image more than losing me. He tried everything. Denial. You're imagining things, Sienna. You always exaggerate. Blame. This is your fault for snooping. Guilt-tripping. You're tearing this family apart. Anger. How dare you embarrass me like that? He paced the living room like a trapped animal, running his hands through his hair while muttering excuses under his breath. Every time I stayed silent, he got louder, because silence exposes liars faster than any accusation. You're ruining my life, he snapped. No, I said quietly. You did that when you hid a child from your wife. He froze. His eyes hardened, then softened, then darted away, classic manipulation tactics unraveling at the seams. He tried to reset the power dynamic by making himself the victim. I was trying to do a good thing. She needed help. The baby needed stability. And I didn't? I asked. He looked away, jaw tight. His biggest mistake wasn't the adoption. It was the belief that I would accept whatever explanation he handed me, no matter how ridiculous. Over the next few days, he alternated between cold silence and sudden affection, as if love bombing could patch over legal documents and a human life I never consented to raise. But the truth was out now. He knew it. I knew it. And everyone around us was beginning to see through him. A man unraveling is loud. A woman gathering evidence is silent. And I had never been more silent in my life. I realized that if this ever escalated legally, my word versus Ethan's wouldn't be enough. I needed neutrality. Objectivity. A professional anchor in the storm. So I arranged for a social worker, independent, unbiased, to interview Ava, the baby's mother. When the report came in, I sat in my car and read it slowly, line by line. Each paragraph was another nail in Ethan's narrative. The timeline didn't match Ethan's version. Ava expressed doubt about Ethan's transparency. There were inconsistencies in how the adoption was presented to both parties. Ethan described me as emotionally unstable, which the social worker flagged as manipulative justification for excluding a spouse. The decision-making process lacked transparency and fairness. The report didn't need dramatic language. Its professionalism was the very thing that made it devastating. One line stood out. It appears the spouse, Sienna, was systematically excluded from the process in ways that raise ethical concerns. Ethical concerns. I almost laughed. If they had seen what I'd seen, they would have called it something stronger. The last page recommended revisiting parts of the adoption for legal review, not to remove the child from a safe environment, but to ensure all parties' rights were honored. I closed the folder. For the first time, I felt the ground under my feet shift in my favor. Not because I wanted revenge, but because a neutral professional recognized the truth I had been screaming internally for weeks. Ethan had built a lie. But neutrality had dismantled it. If there's one thing communities love, it's scandal. And once a secret cracks, it spreads like spilled oil, slowly at first, then uncontrollably. The next major blow happened at a school charity fundraiser. Ethan and I attended separately. The tension between us was too thick to pretend. He lingered near the silent auction table, trying to look composed. I was chatting politely with a group of parents when I heard someone behind me say, "So that baby isn't even theirs?" The voice was loud, too loud, followed by awkward laughter. Before I could react, another parent whispered, "Heard he adopted it alone. Didn't even tell his wife." Ethan heard it. His face reddened instantly, jaw clenching so tight a muscle twitched. I didn't say a word. I didn't defend him. I didn't correct anyone. I simply watched him feel, for the first time, what I'd been feeling for weeks. Humiliation. Loss of control. Exposure ****. He stormed out shortly after, brushing past me without a glance. People watched the dramatic exit but pretended not to. As I picked up a silent auction paddle, one mother leaned in and said gently, "If you ever need anything, I mean anything, I'm here." Support. From strangers. Because they recognized wrongdoing when they saw it. Later that night, he confronted me at home. "You're loving this, aren't you?" he accused. "No," I said calmly. "But I'm not hiding for you anymore." His eyes flashed with something between fear and rage. Public exposure had done what private confrontation couldn't. It cracked the mask he wore daily. And cracks only grow under pressure. Ethan had always been proud of his career. Respected. Admired. Seen as the ethical one at work. Which made the next step both critical and poetic. I scheduled a meeting with his HR department. Not to destroy him. But to protect myself. To ensure they heard the truth from me, not twisted through gossip or Ethan's spin. The HR director, a calm woman with reading glasses perched on her nose, listened attentively as I laid out the facts. The secret adoption. The forged narrative. The exclusion of a legal spouse. The emotional manipulation. The professional risks attached to false statements and legal filings. I made it clear. I'm not asking for disciplinary action. I'm not trying to ruin him. I'm only ensuring you have accurate information. The director nodded slowly. "We appreciate your transparency, Mrs. Hart. We'll handle this professionally." Her eyes softened. "I'm sorry you're going through this." By the time I left, I knew one thing for certain. Ethan's reputation wasn't just a little cracked. It was beginning to fracture publicly and professionally. And I hadn't done anything except tell the truth. When he found out HR had been informed, he exploded. "You had no right," he shouted. "I had every right," I replied. "Your actions affected me. Legally. Personally. Publicly." He stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. Maybe he was. Because I wasn't the Sienna he once controlled. I was the Sienna who documented everything. And documentation has consequences. Cornered liars become dangerous. Not physically, but emotionally. Psychologically. Desperately. Over the next few days, Ethan tried every trick he had left. He attempted to lock me out of our joint accounts. But I had already printed all the statements. He deleted text messages between him and Ava. But I had saved screenshots. He tried to manipulate passwords. I'd already changed mine. He started arguments hoping I'd explode, so he could call me unstable. But I stayed calm. Calm infuriates guilty people. The lowest point came when he tried to rewrite history. "You knew we were helping her. You just forgot. You always forget things." It was gaslighting at its finest. An attempt to confuse me, distort the timeline, make me question my own memory. But I didn't waver. "No, Ethan," I said. "I didn't forget. You simply never told me." He looked at me with sudden desperation. "Can't we just move past this? We never even stood in the same truth to begin with." The more I refused to collapse, the more unhinged he became. His texts grew frantic. His tone unpredictable. His excuses tangled into contradictions. And with each misstep, with each panicked attempt to regain control, he gave me more proof. More screenshots, more recordings, more inconsistencies. This wasn't revenge. This was documentation. And he was documenting himself. With every desperate move he made. The day of mediation felt unreal. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just heavy. Like walking into a room where the air already knows the truth. I arrived early, documents neatly organized in a binder. PI reports. Social worker findings. Hospital records. Screenshots. Recorded calls. Witness statements. Ethan walked in 10 minutes late, looking disheveled and exhausted. His confidence had evaporated. He carried no documents, just a forced smile he hoped would charm the mediator. Ava sat beside me. For the first time, she looked strong. No trembling hands. No guilt. Just clarity. The mediator, a calm older man, started with simple questions. Neutral tone. Professional posture. But Ethan stumbled immediately. Why was your wife excluded from the adoption process? The mediator asked. Ethan opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. It was all very stressful. The mediator raised a hand. Please answer directly. Directness cornered him. He wasn't used to it. He tried blaming timing. Stress. Miscommunication. Paperwork delays. But every excuse contradicted a document I had already submitted. Then Ava spoke. She didn't know, she said firmly. He told me she did, but she didn't. I would never have agreed if I knew the truth. Silence. A long, sharp silence. The mediator turned to Ethan and asked one final question. Do you acknowledge withholding critical information from your spouse? His jaw twitched. His eyes darted to mine. Then to the table. Yes. His voice cracked. Yes, I did. It wasn't victory I felt. It wasn't triumph. It was something quieter. Validation. Relief. The end of gaslighting, ***. The truth was finally spoken. Out loud, officially, unambiguously. And he was the one who said it. 2 days after mediation, I received a message from an unknown number. Can we talk? Richard Hart. Ethan's father. I met him at a small diner, unsure of what to expect. But when he arrived, he didn't waste time with pleasantries. I've suspected for months that something wasn't right, he said. He avoids accountability the way most people avoid traffic. He sighed deeply, rubbing the bridge of his nose. I tried asking him what was going on. He shut me out. Became defensive. Secretive. Then he looked me straight in the eyes. I'm ashamed of what he did to you. And I'm willing to give a statement if this goes to court. I hadn't realized until that moment how much I needed someone. Anyone. From his side to acknowledge the truth. He went on. He's always been persuasive. Charming when he wants something. Manipulative when he fears losing it. I enabled that more than I should have. Hearing a parent admit their part in a grown child's behavior is rare. And powerful. Regardless of what happens between you two, he said softly, the baby deserves honesty. And so do you. His support wasn't loud. But it was solid. Measured. Sincere. For the first time, I felt the scales tip further. I wasn't just fighting as an outsider anymore. Someone from Ethan's own bloodline was standing on the side of truth. Sometimes an ally arrives late. But their presence still changes the entire battlefield. The courtroom was silent when we walked in, a solemn silence that carried weight. No theatrics like in movies. Just rows of benches, a stern judge, and the soft shuffle of papers. I sat at one table, my lawyer beside me. Ethan sat across from us, alone, shoulders hunched like the air itself pressed down on him. The judge began with the documents, meticulously reviewing every page. The hospital records. The adoption forms. The email where Ethan labeled me emotionally fragile. The social worker's concerns. The PI photos. The statements from Ava. And lastly, the testimony from his father. Ethan winced at every page, as if each were another layer of truth he couldn't outrun. When it was my turn to speak, my voice didn't shake. Your Honor, I'm not here to punish anyone, I said. I'm here to ensure transparency, safety, and respect, for myself, for the child, and for the child's mother. The judge nodded. Then turned to Ethan. Mr. Hart, why did you exclude your wife from a legally binding adoption process? Ethan opened his mouth. But nothing came out. He tried, but the lies formed no sentences. Because lies don't survive in rooms built for truth. The judge delivered the ruling with firm clarity. Ethan's adoption remained legally recognized, but under strict oversight. He was mandated to attend parenting and accountability counseling. All future decisions required written consent from both legal guardians. I was granted full access, rights, and protections that should have been granted from the start. The court formally acknowledged the deception in the process. Ethan's face crumpled. Not into tears, but into the expression of a man seeing his empire collapse. The judge ended with words that echoed in the room. Transparency is not optional in a marriage. Deception has consequences. And just like that, Ethan's secret world, the one he built so confidently, was dismantled piece by piece. By the truth. You'd think the courtroom ruling would be the end. But consequences don't stop at legal boundaries. Word spread. Not because I spoke. But because truth travels faster than manipulation when people finally start paying attention. Relatives began distancing themselves. Quietly at first. Then openly. His mother, once defensive, now avoided phone calls. His coworkers exchanged whispers when he walked into the office. Friends stopped inviting him to gatherings. The dinner party incident had become a storyline everyone referenced delicately but unmistakably. He tried salvaging his reputation. Apology tours. Half-truth explanations. Subtle attempts to paint himself as overwhelmed, misunderstood. But people weren't fooled anymore. The veneer cracked. Then shattered. He lost a major project at work due to trust concerns. His mentor pulled back. Social circles thinned until he was left standing alone at events he once dominated. He blamed me. But deep down, he knew. The truth didn't ruin him. It simply exposed what was already broken. Meanwhile, my life grew quieter. Lighter. Full of people who genuinely supported me. I wasn't rebuilding from ruins. I was rebuilding from revelations. And every day that passed, I felt the weight of his lies lift just a little more. Months later, I stood in the same nursery where the nightmare began. But this time, sunlight filtered through the curtains, warm and gentle, not cold and suspicious. The baby sat on the floor, stacking colorful blocks. When he looked up and smiled at me, something inside me softened in a way I didn't expect. Not motherhood. Not obligation. Just humanity. Ava and I now exchanged updates regularly, respectfully, cautiously, but with shared understanding. We weren't friends. Maybe we never would be. But we were no longer adversaries in Ethan's narrative. Ethan visited the baby under structured, mutually agreed terms. No surprises. No manipulation. No secrecy. He seemed smaller now. Not physically, but emotionally. Like a man who finally understood that control built on lies is temporary at best. He once told me I'd thank him someday. He couldn't have been more wrong. I never thanked him. Not for the lie. Not for the pain. Not for the chaos. But I did thank myself. For refusing to be silent. For choosing truth over comfort. For walking away with dignity when the world expected drama. My revenge wasn't dramatic. It wasn't destructive. It wasn't loud. It was simple. I reclaimed my narrative. He lost the one he tried to force. And the child, the innocent one, gained a future rooted in transparency, not deception. Before leaving the nursery, I opened the drawer where the photo once sat. Inside was nothing but neatly folded baby clothes. No secrets. No lies. Just a room filled with honesty at last. And as I closed the drawer gently, I felt it fully and finally. I won, quietly, cleanly, on my own terms.